Sometimes it is just better to assume a mean instead of calculating it. You may have a group of raw data, you look at it and you say, the mean of this is more or less this value. We're going to call this one the assumed mean, and the letter that we usually represent for the assumed mean is an A. And this is still important because you can still treat statistically the information that you are collecting using that assumed mean. Let's see how this is done. It's possible to calculate the true mean and the standard deviation by following these steps. First, for the mean. You already have the assumed mean. You figured it out yourself. You attributed that value yourself. So you have to subtract A from the data item xi to calculate the variation dy from the assumed mean. So what does this mean? This means that for whatever value you attributed as being the mean, that is the assumed mean, you are going to calculate the deviation of each individual item. How do you do that? You just do that value, that raw data value, minus the assumed mean. You have to do this for every single individual value. All right? Then what you do, you calculate the mean of all these variations. That's what you have over here. You sum all the deviations that you just calculated, divided by the number of values that you have, and you have the mean of the deviations. If you are using a frequency table, this is what you'll use on the frequency table. For each cell, you will have this. You'll have a value for this, so you just have to add them all together, divide by n, and you have the mean of the deviations. So what is the true mean going to be? You just have to add the assumed mean to this value that you just calculated. In other words, the true mean is the mean of the deviations plus the assumed mean. It doesn't matter which value you pick. The more or the further away this is from the true mean, the smaller this value or the bigger this value is going to be. So one thing is going to compensate for the other, and the sum of these two is always going to be the true mean. What about the standard deviation? For the standard deviation, you are just going to apply the same formula again, but using now the deviations instead of the true values. If you look at this, this is exactly the same formula, but instead of x, which usually represents the true values, you have here the deviations. So the standard deviation is what? Is the mean of the deviation of the sum of the deviation square minus the square of the deviations. This is what this is. All right? This is that. So it's just the average of the deviations square. Is exactly the same as you had before. Using frequency tables, this is what you'll get. Again, is the same formula, but with these instead of x's. So just apply this and you get the standard deviation. And you know what? The standard deviation calculated this way is exactly the same as the true standard deviation. So in a nutshell, in general, the mean, again, the true mean equals the mean of the deviations plus the assumed mean. And the standard deviation, the true one, is calculated the same way with the assumed mean. All right, so this will give you the true value for the standard deviation. As simple as that. You won't have these formulas, by the way, on the MF19. I advise you to write them down on your own version of the MF19 that you should have always with you for both statistics and pure maths. And have it all along with you every time you solve exercises. Obviously, when the exam day comes, you are going to be given a fresh one by your invigilator, but you will know where things are and how to use it. Chances are that you won't use the MF19 altogether because you will know all those formulas by heart. But in order for this to happen, it's important that at least in the beginning, you have all the formulas with you You add to your own version of the MF19 formulas that are not there, such as these, so that you constantly look at them until eventually you realize that you don't need them anymore. So this is my pro tip for you. Get an MF19, use always the same, add your own notes to it if you need actually written notes to explain where things come about, etc. That's entirely up to you. But the pro tip is always use the same copy of the MF19 and add to this copy your own notes.